Well, it's a Duelist clip. I climbed it, obviously, using Striker as per usual. This is literally the list I used to climb last month. I didn't really have any problems with it. I never really wanted to change anything except taking out talents because I keep drawing both of them. I keep drawing two of them together, and I keep needing it to be like, oh, I need one more life card, and then like, here's two talents. Everything else has been really good. I had drones actually come up, which was very nice. It was in a math mech game. We'll run over this. I don't know. I think it would make more sense to just watch the other video if you actually care for an explanation. 3 maxi, everyone special summons, whatever. Ash, this is just really good against basically everything. It's good against stun lists. Their best cards are going to need to be ashed, like if they have Heart of Demise, or if they're activating Hugin to try to get to Runic Fountain in order to actually have enough card advantage to win a game. Ray is Ray. You know, this gives you access to all of your linked ones, and it's just how you stick on engine, and you're able to get so much advantage every turn. Rose is here for the linkage stuff. Sometimes her Grave Effect comes up, and her, like, Resnegate will be great. I had that come up against a funny game I played against a Vanquish Soul player. That I won with a hand that I'd normally say was very bad because it was like called by Ray Rose linkage, I think it was, and I had maxied, but they had Ash said maxi. But they made a really weird play, probably because they thought, they were like, oh, Striker can't out this, even though I had the out on the board because they had the rock up. Hamp outs annoying things. I never had a game where that actually came up during this, but it could have. I bricked on it a lot. I kept thinking, oh boy, I want to cut this one. Raigeki's Raigeki, destroy all monsters. Harpy's Feather Duster, same thing, but for spells and traps. I ran into some stun, and I never drew back row removal out of engine. It happens. I still won those games because our deck is kind of crazy against the stun decks. This is just an extra copy of Array that also puts a spell in graveyard for your striker cards. Engage is all of your striker cards. And potentially one more if you have 3 spells in graveyard. Afterburner is fantastic. This is a big reason why your stun matchup is great. Side note, for Hugin, the protection effect can't be used if you just destroyed it with your afterburners. So usually, ideally, you'll be like, put 3 spells in grave, activate afterburners, target Hugin, and then destroy probably Fountain. But if you need another Floodgate destroyed, more importantly, you can do that instead. Jamming Waves, that's set back row. It'll come up. But Jamming Waves and Hamp were pretty cuttable, and were cards I kind of ended up breaking on a couple of times. But most of the losses were like, I can't access Ray at all. Lightning Storm, just another copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, essentially, or potentially just a worse Raigeki. Once again, never actually drew it into the stun decks, but I did draw it into Makonko. Like, I literally had, like, Lightning Storm Raigeki against Makonko to clear their board, to get them for a bunch of damage, and then clear my board with multi-roll, so they couldn't kill me. And then, you know, get my turn back. Talents, really easy to turn on live. We're blinding second with this deck. Thrust, same thing. We usually search Engage, but you can also grab Raigeki, Harpies, or Lightning Storm if you need those for the given situation. Still in one multi-roll. Nobody's really on Pearly. It's probably honestly worth it to cut Hamp. I just think this card's really bricky, and it's just like a bad kaiju. Too Called by the Grave. Can't cut it. Too good. It's also good at this Math Mech, and Math Mech's like the deck I would tend to lose against. just because of the way the board works. Drones is situationally better than linkage. I did actually have that come up, like I said. It was one where I had already summoned Ray, and I had Thrust. It was against a Math Mech player, and so I like went Thrust for Engage. But I didn't have a normal summon, and I only had Rose in hand, so I didn't have like a card to send for linkage. So I was actually able to grab Hornet Drones and play the game from there. Widowmaker, obviously, targeted effect negation. You can steal a monster. Good card. Shark Cannon banishes from grave. You can steal it. This can come up with like Barone or Fenrir, usually, are the two likely targets in decks that don't care about the graveyard. These three are kind of nice for Math Mech, except Math Mech usually ends with a Spell Trap negate from the Save Worm or whatever it's called. Which, like, if you can kaiju their Link 5, then the Save Worm can't negate, and you can play around Super Factorial depending on your hand. But that's very hand specific. A lot of the time, Super Factorial is just going to make you cry. Linkage, obviously, and triple Imperm. I did not make Zeus the entire time. I might have made access code. I did. Azalea came up. Azalea came up several times and was very critical for me winning a couple games. There's one where it came up against Stun. I actually misplayed that game too, which was very funny because I needed to run over the Hugin by battle and then go Azalea and pop the, I think it was Gozen, the one where you're only locked into one attribute, because I had drones, so I basically had Ray and the drones token, and they had just the 2 back row because I had hand trapped them from getting the Runic Field spell. So what I should have done is I should have normaled Ray, ran over with Ray, then made Azalea, popped the Gozen match, and then passed turn, because I had Rose in hand from there. So unless they like had Teak Boo as the other set, I can always play the game from that position. I do think that would have been better than what I did do, but I still won that game anyways, because it was really funny, because they had made another Hugin where they were trying to get to Fountain again, in a position where they shouldn't have done it, by the way, and I negated Hugin again, and I was like, wait, if I go combat, I can turn on my triple attack 6 stress, because Hugin's shuffle back effect when destroyed is mandatory. So then I set engage, and I was basically like, you draw destruction right now, or I'm going to immediately win the game. They did not draw destruction, and they surrendered. But yeah. So for here, what I'd say are flex slots in the extra deck is like Zeus mostly, and also access code talker if you want to put in like unicorn or something. Make a cut there. I'd keep access code though. It'll come up if your opponent has a link 3. Like obviously I'd keep these, that's why they're in the deck. Phoenix was the one that would come up the most where I'd be like, I guess. Sometimes it puts a spell in graveyard is the most important thing it does, which is very funny, by the way. But I mostly just made striker names. I actually was making Azalea during this. Stun is annoying, but you generally have a pretty good stun matchup. Like, you're blinding second, and your removal spell traps, and stun is designed to stop your monsters, or for me to making exciting monsters. And even if they do, like, lock you into an attribute or something, it's generally pretty likely you'll have the capacity to still interact and play the game. Oh, I like the deck. It performed well. I didn't feel the need to mess around with it. I want to show you this game because I didn't even know people played this in their extra deck. Because this is going to be the Vanquish Soul game, by the way. So, you look at this hand, and this hand is, like, you're like, oh, it's great. You have Maxi, you have Ray linkage. These two don't interact with the board like we want it to. So we obviously Maxi because I'm looking to draw something. They have Ash. It happens. So right here, I was worried they were going to reveal 2 for Xiaolong, 2 fires. But fortunately, they only had the Ash. This was great because I specifically called that they had the Book of Moon here. But pretty much what I'm doing is I'm thinking, you know what, I'm gonna need to interact with that back row. So let's interact with it. So I do Ray Rose, they're gonna summon Raisin from hand, get the search. And then my suspicions were correct. And they're going to summon Caesar. That flips down Rose. And they had Earth, Fire, Dark. So they want to put me off of striker names, which I don't think is a bad idea. But I actually, what would normally be not a great hand for this matchup, turned out to be great when 2 of the cards in the hand go to graveyard in order to try to stop me from getting back to Ray. It's so bad. So yeah, that was a lot better. From this position, they have 1 card in hand, which is Xiaolong or whatever it's called, which is not great, and we get engage. So pretty much from this position, I'm like, we're golden. We have Ray in graveyard, I have engage in hand, I can flip summon Rose next turn. They don't play 3 Dust Devil, and even if they did, they'd either have to hard draw it or Mad Love or something from this position. Which actually is not true, by the way. Because I also don't know, like, they really misplayed here. Let me explain. What they should have done is they should have activated Raisin's effect, reveal the fire in hand, and then special summon Xiaolong. Then they can make Blackluster Soldier. Then they can add back Raisin, normal summon Raisin, and then they can have this Blackluster Soldier play along with, you know, an extra card in hand and Raisin on the field. So to go to battle phase, this is the thing a lot of players will do against Striker in particular, is they'll hit over your monsters while you have Ray in graveyard, and they don't have interaction. That's a very dumb thing to do. Just a heads up, if anyone was wondering. So we go in phase. I'm just waiting for in phase in case maybe they have triple attack 6 talents or something weird, or like call by or something. We're okay if Ray gets called by the way, I'd like to be clear. So from this position, we just, during end phase, we're just searching second engage, because our opponent was kind enough to give us that. So from this position, easy peasy, we flip up, they add back Raisin. Our worst case scenario was what, like second Raisin in hand or something? So Zeke, and we get to trigger Rose. Notably, this can't be targeted, I believe, or destroyed. Doesn't matter when we negate its effects. I go Azalea because I want to make Azalea here, but we have infinite ways to win the game from that position. If we want to be quite frank. And from here we just grab Ray, and then I just go combat because there's no need for me to like mess around with my opponent. And we just do the linkage OTK. Oh yeah, I put an extra spell in Grave, just in case something funny happened. I will say, by the way, technically speaking, if you wanted to play around Imperm, we would have engaged for second linkage before, and there's no reason to not do that. I just thought that was a funny game. Certainly not to my opponent. I believe this one is the Math Mech game I won. Yes. So my opponent, I think they had a bad hand, but also, like, had to play, like, this has to be played really poorly. There's no way Math Mech, like, shouldn't have been able to set up a better board. So they do Math Mech things. Get Diameter, make Alimbertion. I refuse to believe this doesn't make a better board than this. So they have a, we know they have a follow-up Circular. But also, like, Mathmech's follow-up is insane all the time. Like, there's a thing that follow-up circular. And they're gonna make Terahertz, they're gonna send the Save Worm, that's negate, and we know that... So we have 2 unknown cards in hand. So I'm basically like, I hope those are Cyberse extenders, because we can't even really beat this board. Like, consistently, at least. They actually hold off on Super Factorial, which was very good for us because we hard drew Hamp, and we hard drew Ray. We don't activate Rose Effect, because I really want them to not pitch Thrust. What they're doing here I don't hate, by the way, because what they're doing is they're sending Hayate as a way to basically get an extra negate. They do send multi-roll. I wanted them to send Rose. But it's not the end of the world. We thrust. I was expecting for them to Ash, but they didn't. They didn't have Ash. This is the part where we get our Hornet drones online. Fantastic. I summon Rose here with the idea that I want to pop a card because I have 4 spells in graveyard, and, like, why not? It was basically I wanted to remove Link material, because if I survive the next turn, I have basically guaranteed won the game. Cycle Engage. We're grabbing Widow Anchor, because I'm basically thinking I just need to stop myself from dying to access code. We're good at the game, so we draw Maxi as the extra draw, by the way. But regardless of the extra draw is just, like, gravy. So, obviously, like I said, we're dying to access code. That was actually really smart on their part. Wow, dang. We're going to search Shark Cannon so that we can actually use Widow Anchor. Because we're turning off the Save Form, because they'll be able to negate our Widow Anchor otherwise, like, guaranteed. So we activate Maxi here, but like I said, our goal is to survive, so, like, the only relevant card we really draw here would be, well, there are 2 relevant cards. Following a raid, like, name or an ability to destroy the monster in the EMZ, because that would essentially be a name, because we'd get to use Rose Effect in Graveyard. That's the only cards to draw that matter. That and Ash, because we don't have another hand that we'd be able to activate unless something weird happens. So from this position, I recognize that this represents a negate, and I take it. I probably should have stolen the Splash Mage, but that puts them on, like, not having specific extenders. I would need to know Mathmech better. But from here, they're going to use multiplication in order to double this attack. Very importantly, this is 8400 attack, which is notably not lethal. And because it's not lethal, they're going to go for the access code blocker effect to pop. We summon Ray. And then we immediately, so I toggled on here in order to stop the access code from attacking. We don't die, we can't, like, there's nothing they can do. We win the game. And then they recognize they can attack. I assume there's probably some way for them to, like, play around that, but also, I refuse to be bothered to learn how Mathmech works. But yeah, those were a couple of the games. A lot of Mathmech games I just kind of lost. Ever since the Save Worm was printed, it becomes a lot more annoying to interact with, that stuff. And also a lot of them play Cynet Conflict, and getting, like, conflicted on... Like, there was a game where I was like, oh, I can actually make it through this board, just barely, and then they activate Conflict, and I'm like, oh, okay, never mind, I can't do anything. But yeah. Duelist Cup was fairly straightforward for me. I really like this deck against Stun in particular. Like I said, if they're playing Runic Stun, the hand traps are actually pretty big on keeping them off of Runic Fountain, which is nice. And Afterburners is uniquely equipped to deal with Hugin exactly, which is really, really good. If they're playing regular stun, you've got Raigeki, Harpies, Afterburners, Jamming Waves, Lightning Storm. Like, you're gonna be fine. And also just Ray in general. If you hard draw Ray, Ray in general plays around a bunch of floodgates. That's what that comes down to. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this, I guess. Yeah. That's really all I have to say. Later.